Hi, everyone. Welcome to Get Well with Dr. Shel. I am Dr. Shalene Alalji, better known as Dr. Shel, and I know as a board-certified OBGYN and a functional medicine expert, your health is unique and deeply personal. It is a combination of genetics, lifestyle, and environment. Know this, no matter what your starting point is, you are never powerless over your health. Being on a health journey is a marathon, not a sprint. This podcast is about walking you through many different perspectives on health conditions, symptoms, and solutions that can help you get from fatigued to fabulous. My mission has always been to offer my patients and community the best of mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. You can learn more about me and my wellness center and schedule your telehealth appointment at drshel.com. We can support you no matter where you are in the world. This podcast is a powerful and simple way to carry the wisdom of thought leaders from around the world in your pocket and continue to develop your own healing journey every single day. So let the journey begin. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great interview. Today, I have Dr. Steven Masley for you, who is a physician, a nutritionist, a trained chef, and creator of one of the top health programs on PBS, 30 Days to a Younger Heart. He's a fellow of the American Heart Association and the American College of Nutrition, and he's a clinical professor at the University of South Florida. His latest best-selling book is the new and revised The 30-Day Heart Tune-Up, with a plan to help prevent and reverse heart disease. His work has been seen by millions on PBS, the Discovery Channel, The Today Show, and many other outlets. For more details, please visit him on drmasley.com. Welcome, Steven. It's so good to have you here today with us.
Hi, Shel. I'm delighted to be with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. We have some great topics to cover, and I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So let's get started, shall we?
Please.
Well, we all love the heart. The heart makes our world go around, doesn't it? We talk a lot about the heart and what it does and circulation. Talk to our audience a little bit about how our circulation impacts energy and vitality that all of us are searching for now.
Well, that's a really good point, Shel, because too often people think, okay, a heart attack, stroke won't happen to me. They're in denial. They don't realize that your circulation is really what gives nourishment and energy to your tissues. It takes away waste. It brings in oxygen. So if you have optimal circulation, like a high performance athlete, you're alive, you're vibrant, not only that, but you sleep better, your sex drive gets better. Yes. For both men and women, which is sex functional, is very closely tied to circulation. Mm-hmm. So there's so many things that are just dependent on circulation for optimal quality of life. Mm-hmm. If you don't have good circulation, that means you're growing plaque and you're at elevated risk for a heart attack, stroke, or death.
That is such a good point because, you're right. A lot of people don't think about how important it is when the blood circulates. And we know, we carry and are exposed to toxins from everywhere, right? Our environment is so filled with toxins. And yes, we try really hard to lead our lives in a clean environment. We try to get rid of chemicals from our cleaning products, from our skincare products, from everything that we put on our scalp or hair or what have you. And we talk about this all the time. So how does circulation impact toxicity and detoxification, the actual process of detoxification?
Well, we're looking at our tissues at the cellular level. It's dependent on capillary flow. So mm-hmm. If we have good circulation to them, it's flushing out the toxins from those cells on a cell-by-cell basis, and it's bringing them nutrients and oxygen and everything they need. So at a cellular level, we can function at a high level of vitality. When you cut that down and you have what we call congestion, like congestive heart failure. Sure. Now you're not removing the toxins. You're not flushing them out. You're not bringing the nutrients or the oxygen. and your cells function at a low level, and we have fatigue, we have brain fog. We're clearly not at that optimal high vibrant level of function. So that's to me where it's at the cellular level that circulation is so important. I think from a, cardiologists think of it as those arteries in our heart, whether we have a heart attack or not, but from the day-to-day, moment-to-moment function, and for sexual function for both men and women, the cellular circulation is just so critically important.
Absolutely. I talk to my patients when I see them about mitochondrial health, right? I mean, we're all now really focused on, like you said, on the cellular level, making sure our mitochondria are healthy. And if our mitochondria is not healthy, we're not going to have healthy hearts, healthy brains, healthy guts, healthy immune system, none of that healthy sexual function. Our hormones are not going to function. So when you talk about, putting it all sort of together, we talk about all the different glands, right, in our body. We're talking about the thyroid gland, the adrenal glands, we talk about the sex glands, we're talking about the ovaries, the testes in men, ovaries in women, and so on and so forth. How is it that heart disease, circulation issues, the issues of not having appropriate detoxification with appropriate circulation, how does that impact, let's say, for example, your thyroid or your adrenal glands?
So, well, again, we're looking at how do they function at that cellular level. And first, let me address it the other way. Your thyroid has a tremendous impact on your metabolism, your ability to burn calories, and your heart function, whether it pumps well or not. Oftentimes when people have hypothyroidism, low thyroid function, it'll actually slow down the function of the heart, and it increases the risk for heart failure. Your cholesterol goes up, you grow more plaque. So and then when you're in overthyroid function, it overdrives and you're overstimulated and you're arrhythmias and your heart causes dysfunction. So the thyroid has an amazing impact on the gross overall function of the heart. The heart is more impacting the thyroid on that cellular level and whether the cells are at their optimal level of performance or not.
That's a great way to explain it. I'm so glad you did that, because if you think about, people who do have hyperthyroidism, if they have a goiter, if they have, other such things, and on the reverse side, if they have Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, you do see that change in your heart rate, your resting heart rate. And so that, when you have metabolism issues, why do you not lose weight, and why are you having difficulty losing weight when you have hypothyroid? Because your metabolism is slowing down, your heart rate is being affected, and vice versa. So I think the connection is very intricate and very interesting. Now we know that our reports and research suggest that we can prevent 90% of heart disease with the proper lifestyle changes. If that's the case, Steven, can you explain to our listeners why then is cardiovascular disease still the #1 killer in Americans?
Well, you're making a really good point, and it shouldn't be, right?
Yes.
I mean, the data is actually very strong. I completely agree that we can prevent 90% of all of heart disease, all the deaths, the heart attacks, the strokes with lifestyle. Yeah. But it's still the #1 killer today. So I think there's two primary reasons for that. One, our medical system is really focused on diagnosing and treating disease. We spend 90% of all of our healthcare dollars for heart disease on hospital care and procedures, about 9% on medical management, and probably less than 1% on prevention. Wow. So disease that we can prevent 90%, that's not where we're putting our money or emphasis. I mean, you and I are, but the healthcare system as a whole is failing the American public. And Canada and Western Europe and Australia, other Western countries are doing maybe a little bit better, but not a lot. We way overemphasize hospital end stage procedure care, to the point that many of those procedures probably shouldn't be done. And I overemphasize the importance of them. You know, people think they save their lives. They don't. Those procedures only treat symptoms. They don't prevent future heart attacks and strokes to any significant degree. Lifestyle is much better at preventing a future heart attack and stroke than a procedure is. And most people don't know that.
Wow.
The problem is, I think providers have so many complex, mixed, confusing messages. We've kind of paralyzed the public as to what they should really be doing.
Right.
So one of my real goals is to get a clear, focused message on what can you do that will work, that's been proven, that's evidence-based, that can make a big difference. Small changes can make big differences if we do them right.
Right.
So I think we've got to have a simpler message that people can actually follow.
Yes.
An easy to follow program that will transform your health, protect you from a heart attack and stroke, make your circulation function better, and your arteries literally younger. That's really what the 30-day heart tune-up is all about.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And, you know, I just want to take a pause here and recognize what you're saying and make sure the listeners really got that. So I want you to please repeat what you said as far as the percentages of how much money and attention we are spending at the three different categories that you mentioned. Could you repeat that for our audience?
Well, for heart disease,
yes,
for that problem,
yes,
we're spending 90% of every dollar spent for managing heart disease on hospital care and procedures.
So this is
end-stage treatments that are pretty invasive and clearly have adverse side effects.
Absolutely. And so just to clarify, this is after a problem has occurred. So we are, again, most of the money, 90% of it is being spent, oh, you've already had a heart attack, or you have chest pain, or, you know, let's go ahead and do an invasive procedure to see which arteries are blocked. So you're essentially confirming that 90% of it is spent on post, like not preventive.
Yeah, end stage care.
Yes, yes. And that's
last
really
moments
disturbing.
of last moments of someone's life, you know.
Very disturbing, very disturbing. And then the others?
So here's more of an estimate. This is harder to track. The hospital and procedure expenditure is pretty easy, and that's a pretty solid number.
Yes.
Around 9% gets spent on medical management. That's like seeing the doctor and having your cholesterol checked and your blood pressure checked and taking drugs for that. And about 1% is left over for
So let's dive into that 1%, because I think that needs to become 90%, right?
It should, yeah. And then we'd get rid of 90% of the events if we did that.
That's right. So not only are we making life easier on people, on human beings, but we're taking the burden of this huge cost burden on our society and our economy, which really is not necessarily, you know, impacting the people not actually having heart disease. So let's really fine tune this a little bit. Let's talk, and you talk about this in your book, and you do such a great job of it in the book. And I really, really recommend that our listeners get your book and really read the book, because we can't summarize it all in here. But can you summarize what you recommend to your readers, your patients? What is the 30-day heart tune-up? Can you summarize that for us?
Well, there's some pillars here. So the pillars are: eat the right food, meet your nutrient needs, add activity, and manage your stress.
Good.
That's going to resolve most of our health issues: diabetes, cognitive decline, many of the detoxification issues, you know, the fatigue, the weight gain. All of that's going to get better. If we could do those 4 pillars well, we would feel better, we would sleep better, our sexual function would be better, and we would prevent 90% of heart disease with just the lifestyle part.
That's great. And, you know, for us to really give our listeners some takeaways, can you talk a little bit about the 5 new categories of foods that you refer to that will prevent and reverse heart disease, as well as improve circulation? What are those 5 new categories?
So one would be fiber, plant foods, colorful sources of fiber, vegetable, fruit, beans, nuts.
Yeah.
People could have food sensitivities, to beans, but 90% of people probably that don't, that if you have any food sensitivity, whether it's, gluten or dairy or lectins, then obviously avoid that. But I'll speak assuming someone doesn't have a food sensitivity first.
Sure.
And that's that vegetable, fruit, beans, and nuts provide those plant-based nutrients, phytonutrients, flavonoids, and fiber. Fiber lowers our cholesterol, lowers our blood pressure, improves blood sugar, it decreases inflammation, and feeds the gut microbiome.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably, to me, if we only measured one thing, the average American gets about 30% of the fiber we should get in.
Yes.
We need to triple our vegetable, fruit, bean, and nut intake. And if you can't eat beans, then you need to triple your vegetable, fruit, and nut intake, so
Right.
that's essential. To me, that's number one. Number two would be we need more smart fats. Many people are eating junk fats that come in processed food and trans fat. I call it embalming fluid, trans fat, hydrogenated fat. But we should get nuts and wild seafood like salmon and extra virgin olive oil. And the two main oils I would cook with would either be avocado oil for high heat and extra virgin olive oil for low heat.
Yeah.
So we want smart fats. Dark chocolate actually is a good source of smart fats. So we want them in our diet, and we should get them. Three is clean protein. When we eat protein, we don't want it to come from a feedlot where it was fed, pesticide and hormone enriched food.
Sure.
And animals that have been injected with hormones. So we want clean. So if we're eating animal protein, it needs to be grass-fed, organically raised, wild.
Yes.
Or we should be eating vegan, one or the other.
Yeah.
And the next category has to be with our beverages.
Mm-hmm.
People are getting way too many calories when they drink fluid.
Yeah.
And sugar is overwhelming in the average American Western diet. And the sweeteners really are not better. The NutraSweet, the yellow, pink, and blue packs, those kill the gut microbiome. So they might have a short-term weight benefit in 30 days, but long-term, they actually could cause weight gain.
Yeah.
So cut out the sugar, cut out the sweeteners, drink more water, herbal teas. I'm fine for people who aren't sensitive to them to have coffee, tea, and red wine in moderation. And the other forms of alcohol, I don't see any benefit to them. I just see them as harmful. So lots of water, herbal infusions. And then the last category of food would be the probiotics to feed the gut microbiome.
Right.
And the gut microbiome needs fiber and they need the live organism. So if you're dairy tolerant, I would say have kefir and your plain yogurt, unsweetened.
Yes.
Most people don't realize fruit flavored yogurt has more sugar in it than ice cream.
Isn't that something?
Plain yogurt,
so
kefir,
true.
And if you're dairy sensitive and you avoid it, then please avoid it. But there's sauerkraut, there's miso, there's so many kombucha, there's so many other sources you can get probiotics from. And we need a couple servings every day. And people who are having gut distress probably need to boost it and take a probiotic for a couple months. Really to boost them up. So those are the food categories I've identified that are super important for our heart. And I think that is far more important than worrying about cholesterol and saturated fat.
So happy to hear that. And I think that the way that you summarized it was just fantastic. I think a lot of people, like you said, with the artificial sweeteners, a lot of people think, well, if I just lose 20 pounds, then that would really reverse this. And it's so true. And I want the listeners to really pay attention to this. Artificial sweeteners may give you what you want in the next couple of weeks, but after that, your insulin resistance score is going to go high because you're introducing yourself to all these artificial sweeteners, but it's still affecting your insulin resistance, and it's going to take you down the diabetes route, and it's going to take you down the heart disease route. So you really, really need to focus on, like you said, Steven, clean, whole, plant-based foods. And if you're going to eat protein, it's got to be clean protein. And you need the healthy fats. Long gone is that time where you felt like no fats, no carbs. We need the right foods. It's not about no fats. It's just the right fats and the healthy fats. So really happy that we're talking about this. While we're talking about foods, talk to us about food and the microbiome and the gut and probiotics.
Yes.
Explain to our audience how the gut microbiome and probiotics are related to heart disease. Some people just fail to make that connection. And I think let's make it very seamless so they can understand why it's so important.
Okay, well, so 10, 20 years ago, we knew that people had gut symptoms because they didn't eat enough of the right foods and they had dysbiosis and bacterial overgrowth and the wrong bacteria. And
Sure.
so we've known for some time that that caused GI symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 10 years ago, we started to get a hint that it might impact cognitive function and memory loss and neurologic issues, because there's a very strong gut-brain connection.
Yes.
Then along came the impact on weight. When they started using some of these protocols to help people's gut, some of them were losing amazing weight. And then they started doing studies on, rodents and mice, and realized if you switch the gut microbiome, the mice would be fat or lean and trim, depending on what was in the microbes in their gut.
Mm-hmm.
But in the last few years, I think what's really led me to rewrite this book was that now we know multiple risk factors between the gut and the heart. The gut-heart connection is really very strong. It impacts all the major risk factors: blood sugar, cholesterol, inflammation, your blood pressure, and your weight. All of those are impacted by the type of gut microbes in. And now there's a new risk factor, trimethylamine oxide, TMAO. Here's a chemical that increases your risk for heart disease by 60%. That's more than double the risk of elevated cholesterol. And it's not something we eat. It's a compound the organisms, the microbes in our gut produce. So if we eat the wrong foods, like if we don't eat that plant food, vegetable, fruit, beans, and nuts, and we eat mostly red meat and sugar like flour and, refined carbs, we form bacteria that make TMAO, and that increases our risk dramatically for heart disease and decreases our circulation. It makes us more likely to clot. So now we realize there's a very strong gut-heart connection. And it's probably as or more important. Well, it's up there with blood sugar for being the number one. Blood sugar is the number one cause, elevated blood sugar, for causing heart disease. And I'm predicting the gut microbiome will be close to that importance, up there with high blood pressure or blood sugar. It's clearly more important than your cholesterol level.
Interesting. And yet, unless you're in functional medicine, doctors are not checking the gut and the gut microbiome.
Yes.
They're not doing the stool testing like you and I do in our field of functional medicine. They're not looking for dysbiosis. They're not looking for leaky gut syndrome. I think it's important to take a minute and explain to our audience that, it truly is important to focus on your gut and focus on your gut microbiome and really do the right testing to be able to see what might be happening in your gut, and then to take the specific steps to heal your gut and to reverse the gut inflammation. And, here we're talking about, using things like glutamine powder and aloe and digestive enzymes and proteolytic enzymes, probiotics, and really eating clean. I mean, most of all, first and foremost, it's about what you're putting in the gut, because it's the inflammatory foods that are going to go in and cause you to have the dysbiosis and the leaky gut. So I think all of those things are really important to keep in mind, and they all sort of work together in harmony. It's interesting, Stephen, I do a lot of work and research in neurodegenerative diseases, which my audience is very familiar with because of my husband's ALS. And there have been numerous papers that have been published recently. This is something that, I remember very clearly. About 3 years ago, I was on a conference call with 3 physicians out from Harvard's ALS team, where we're talking about the gut microbiome and ALS and how does it interact. And we were sort of brainstorming in how to get some of these interest groups created, because you and I both know neurodegeneration, whether it's ALS, Parkinson's, MS, dementia, Alzheimer's, there's a big connection with the gut microbiome as there is in heart disease. And I'm just happy to report that there are now several published papers that clearly show that patients with ALS have a completely different microbiome. It has different healthy and unhealthy bacteria, as I'm sure in heart disease, same kind of thing. So the gut is the centermost, area that we need to really, really focus on, which I think is why you're really focused on lifestyle and foods when it comes to heart disease. Is that correct, Steven? I mean, it's really
it's the most important thing. I mean, I mentioned 4 pillars, right? Food, nutrients, activity, stress management, but I would put food first and foremost.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the nutrients. Which nutrients do you feel like are important to prevent and treat heart disease?
So in our clinic, we've been measuring arterial plaque growth from the beginning. So I've used ultrasound to see the age of someone's artery, and down to the 1/100th of a millimeter, we can look at the artery lining thickness of plaque and give someone an arterial age. And it's surprising to see how often a 50-year-old might have the arteries of a 60 or 65-year-old.
Yes.
Even 20-year-olds have seen them with, obese 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds with the arteries of people in their 40s. So it's a very powerful and easy. It's 10-minute procedure, and I've been able to do this yearly and track. And we've done that with 100 other markers of nutrient intake, food intake, fitness, lab levels.
Yes.
A huge database, and we've been able to publish studies and identify what factors predict, are you growing plaque?
Yes.
Is it shrinking or is it staying the same? And some of the nutrients were far more powerful than cholesterol, even more powerful nutrient intake appeared in our published research, more important than blood sugar and blood pressure, which was really quite surprising to me.
Right.
Some of the top nutrients were magnesium,
yes,
zinc. These probably won't surprise you. Fish oil, vitamin K,
yes,
potassium, and vitamin D. These were like the top nutrients that predict how old your arteries are when I first meet you.
Yeah.
And over time, after we've instigated the program, if we replenish the right food, the right nutrients, the right activity, the right stress management, we've had hundreds of people shrink their artery plaque by more than 10%. In other words, their arteries were 10 years younger.
Wow.
On average, a 2.5-year period of time. So we've documented and shown and published it in journals and at medical meetings with the American Heart Association, American College of Nutrition, that you can literally make your arteries 10 years younger by following these steps. But those are the nutrients that were super important in helping predict if you get them in an adequate amount.
Yes, yes.
What do we need? And I'm just floored by the importance that nutrient intake plays in whether we're growing plaque or not.
That is a really, really important point. And I think, much like what we talked about with the gut microbiome, when I have patients coming into my office, and I'm sure you do the same thing when they come in, they might come in with a brown bag filled with vitamins, right? That they might be, I'm taking all these vitamins, but I still feel terrible. And my diabetes is not any better. And, my weight and my energy and, my libido and my mental clarity, none of it is getting better. So 2 points to make here is, number one, all vitamins are not created equal. All minerals are not created equal. you want to take and source the right vitamins and minerals by the right companies who actually do their testing and are more medical grade vitamins than over-the-counter vitamins. Number
Absolutely.
one. And number two, everybody is a unique individual. So you may be deficient in zinc and vitamin D or what have you, and other people may not be. Wouldn't it be great to get sort of a chemical blueprint of yourself to see exactly what are my levels of the different vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants?
Exactly.
And some of the testing that you and I do in our offices, one of my favorites is Nutrival, and the other one is SpectraCell, just looking at what's going on inside our cells and what are we deficient in. Looking at vitamin D levels for everybody. I want to just let the audience know that if hopefully your doctor has checked your vitamin D level. If they haven't, please ask for it. And the range in most labs is 30 to 100. Please don't be okay with being close to the 30. You want your vitamin D levels to be at least about 75 to 80. Wouldn't you agree, Steven?
I really like 50 to 70. That's really if we look at populations that have lived outside their entire lives, check their blood levels, they're almost always in the 50 to 70 level. They'd never be down at 30.
Yes. Well, that's not, unfortunately, no one's living outside.
100,000 years, so.
And so we don't spend as much time outside anymore, unfortunately, right, Steven? And so we're not.
Wear sunscreen or clothing. If we were basically in a thong, you live in Houston, I'm in St. Pete, Florida. We're about at the same latitude. We can make vitamin D from the sun 12 months of the year. But if you live north of Atlanta, north of Dallas, north of Santa Barbara, you don't make 6 months of the year. So that's huge. You need an hour every day in very skimpy attire with no sunscreen outside, or you're not going to come close. I live in Florida. My patients, when we measure their lab, if they're not taking at least 2,000 a day, kind of at a minimum for a supplement, 90% of them were low. Yes.
And I agree. Most of my patients that I see when they first come to see us, most of them, I would say 90% or over, are low in their vitamin D levels. So vitamin D supplementation is very, very important. But yet, I do want to say that, it's important to see where you are on these different things so you can take the right steps to get a healthier heart, to reverse your heart disease, to treat your heart disease, and to just become overall healthier with a longer, healthier life in many different aspects. Now, having said that, we've talked about nutrients, we've talked about food. Let's touch a little bit about on stress management, because the adrenal gland really comes in here, where if you have long periods of chronic stress, you might have adrenal dysfunction, adrenal fatigue. And we, of course, check the adrenals in our practice with salivary cortisol levels 4 times during the day. But also, we just know if we're not doing all the stress management techniques. So besides meditation and sleep and yoga, what else do you recommend to your patients, and what is sort of your takeaway on stress management?
So a lot of people do not know how to, even if they meditate, they may not do it well. So we look at cortisol in people who are stressed, but we look pretty much in everyone. We look at DHEA.
Yes.
Easy test to do, not expensive. And I measure heart math on all my patients now like a vital sign. Just as I've checked their blood pressure, we're going to put a clip on their ear or finger and look at their heart rate variability and assess their ability to get calm. So I ask them to get into a calm, meditative state, and it's either green, yellow, or red.
Right.
They're calm. They're a little anxious, or they're just
off the charts. Yes.
And it's amazing how many people think they're calm and they're not even close. So. Right. So I use heart math, diagnostically, and it's a biofeedback tool to teach people how to, to get relaxed and calm and appreciative of life in an effective way. So, to me, the keys are: we need a good night's sleep.
Yes.
We need some workout to burn off tension and stress every day, and we need at least 10 minutes of proactive peace and calm in our lives. And very few people seem to get those. And even the ones who are doing meditation, when I check and see, are you able to get calm? Half of them haven't figured it out. They're spending the time and they just feel frustrated. So, I mean, there's many other things you could do, but those are, to me, they're like the first three. Those are the first three things I focus on.
Yes, very good points. I tell my patients, if you're having trouble sort of learning how to meditate, take advantage of some of the wonderful apps out there, right? There are, some of my favorite ones are Headspace is a great one. I really love Calm, which is, I do a daily Calm every single day. And it has a lot of different sessions for anxiety, for stress management. And I think, just start somewhere, right? Use maybe the square breathing techniques where you're breathing in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4, out for 4, and then hold for 4. And I think you just get to this point of be kind to yourself, be compassionate. If you can't clear your head, that's okay. Just watch your thoughts come and watch them go like a cloud passing you by. But it's all a matter of let's start somewhere, right? Let's have the intention of trying to manage our stress and live a little bit more peacefully.
And it takes practice.
It does. You're absolutely right.
But I think people underestimate the importance of stress on their heart risk.
Yes.
Like when that earthquake happened years ago in Southern California, the rate of heart attacks went up 500% that day. So when you stress people out,
yes,
5 times more likely to have a heart. I mean, that's huge.
Yes.
People underestimate how important it is. If you're chronically stressed, our cortisol levels are high. Our brain is literally shrinking when we're chronically stressed. We're losing muscle mass. We're losing bone mass, and we're frazzled. So you don't feel good. So it's really super important and under emphasized. And I'm really glad you're making this point.
Yes, truly the number one killer, isn't it? Stress certainly is. Well, Steven, we've had such an exciting discussion. I think that, I'm happy that we are kind of connecting all the dots between heart disease, circulation, the thyroid gland, adrenals, nutrition, food, nutrients, exercise, stress management. Everything is so interconnected, not to mention the gut microbiome being the center of all of this, impacting every single thing that we're going through. How can our audience get in touch with you to get more information if they're wanting to learn more about how to be healthy and, get their heart in a place where they can just lead a very healthy, long life?
Well, the easiest would be to check the website, drmasley.com, drmasley.com. I have a blog there and I send out recipes and health tips. It's free. You can unsubscribe at any time. So that's the simplest. The 30-Day Heart Tune-Up, other books, they're available wherever books are sold, online, any bookshop. So my goal is to help people feel fantastic, to enhance the quality of their lives and make it as easy as possible to accomplish those things. So
that's fantastic.
Really appreciate getting to talk with you today. It's been really fun.
It's been great, Steven. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with all of our listeners. And I know that they will check you out and check out the book. It's a great book. Everybody just try to look that up. And I think you'll really, really enjoy the 30-Day Heart Tune-Up. Thank you again. Thank you so much for making time for today's podcast with Get Well with Dr. Shel. I know that this conversation and education can help you to create your best life possible on every level. So definitely tune in to hear the newest expert and learn the latest protocols to support your best health journey. You can learn more about me and my wellness center at drshel.com, drshel.com, and I hope that you will make time to come visit us in the Houston area to take a deep dive on self-care. My team and I are completely devoted to helping you live a better life from this moment forward. The best days of your life are ahead of you, I promise. This podcast is a powerful and simple way to carry the wisdom of thought leaders from around the world in your pocket and continue to develop your own healing journey every single day. So let the journey begin.